That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, we're going to go through. We are going to be talking about every single running back start-sit decision that you may have this week, every single matchup. Recording this on Wednesday, so this should be out before the Thursday night game. We can talk New England, we can talk Atlanta, and have everybody make fun of us as they watch this on Friday and Saturday with how stupid we may be. But of course, before we get into anything, you know we have to give away some free Fantasy Flock Network hats for the people that went down there on the last video and dropped that like, left that comment. Winner is going to be Ben and Jake. Thank you so much for supporting the channel and being a part of the flock. Going to be really happy to go through, send that Fantasy Flock Network hat out for you. Just make sure you email me ASAP with your physical address so I can get that sent out. And of course, before we dive into it, you're going to see some player props up on the screen right now. You'll see those as the video goes through at the same time. If you ever want to go through, make a bet on one of those player props, you can do that on Underdog Fantasy. You can take the over, take the whatever the hell you want to do. I'll say Underdog Fantasy knows more than you, fair warning. And they are so confident that they know more than you that A, they're paying me to get you to sign up. And B, when you sign up and you use promo code FLOCK, they're willing to match you dollar for dollar up to a $100 deposit on your first one. So of course, go take advantage of that. They also have some really cool fantasy drafts you can get on over there on Underdog Fantasy. And of course, go through the link in the live chat, go through the link in the description of the video. And I think that should be it. Oh yeah. One other thing, we've had a lot of misconceptions with Underdog Fantasy. A lot of people think that they have to be in a state where sports betting is legal. Nope. Underdog Fantasy, not sports betting. Underdog Fantasy, it's just like DFS. If you can play DraftKings, if you can play FanDuel in your state, you can do Underdog Fantasy. So definitely go through and make sure you're taking advantage of that. And yeah, let's go through. Let's dive into these matchups. Our first game, Thursday. I'm recording this on the 17th, so it's going to be hard for me to tell you exactly what we're expecting. Now, if you have Damien Harris cleared for the New England Patriots here, honestly, I'm probably going to be staying away from starting any running back in New England. And also, you actually have Damien Harris practicing on Tuesday. So with Damien Harris going out practicing on Tuesday, I'd imagine that he clears concussion protocol. I'd imagine that he is good to go for that Thursday night game. And y'all know with Damien Harris, this is a running back that we've been low on for a very long time now, for a couple of reasons. A, no involvement in the receiving game, and B, Ramondre Stevenson, we are projecting to expand his role as we got to the end of the season because we talked about this coming into the year, that Ramondre Stevenson was a damn good running back and that this was a running back that could do a little bit of everything. He could catch passes out of the backfield at the same time. So say, if Harris does not play, jam in Ramondre Stevenson, 20 carries a week ago, 5 targets as well. He had more targets last week than Damien Harris has ever had in a single game throughout his entire NFL career. He almost doubled Damien Harris's career high in targets out of the backfield. And then also, if you're looking at Ramondre Stevenson, I mean, he just wouldn't have to be really competing for anybody else with touches in that Atlanta game. However, if Harris is good to go, I'm expecting Harris to be the starting running back. However, I'm unsure of the split that we would have between Harris, Stevenson, and Brandon Bolden. So I probably would be looking to avoid the situation, even though the New England Patriots look like they have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. And obviously, the Atlanta Falcons not worried about the matchup. Now, in the case of Atlanta, right now, it looks like Cordell Patterson may not be playing in this game. I mean, Cordell Patterson obviously getting the ankle injury, Thursday night performance here. So I'm expecting Patterson to most likely not play. I mean, Wayne Gallman was the running back that was filling in over Mike Davis. I knew Mike Davis was bad. We've always known Mike Davis is bad. I had no idea he was this bad. You were getting Wayne Gallman over him. You can't start any of these running backs. Even if Cordell Patterson were to play, I'm not going to be that excited about a banged up Cordell Patterson, one of the worst offenses in the NFL, going up against the New England Patriots here. So honestly, I think that really the only way you're starting a running back out of this game is going to be if Damien Harris misses, fire up Ramondre Stevenson. Now our next game, the Indianapolis Colts and the Buffalo Bills. With the Indianapolis Colts, not going to waste your time here. You start Jonathan Taylor, top 5 running back, even though this is the toughest matchup that he has had all season. Now, in the case of the Buffalo Bills, this is a running back backfield that I went from wanting to play Zach Moss every single week over the past 3 weeks, and every single week just taking our L, taking that L, to now I think we can sit here and go, oh, well, we can't play Zach Moss. If Devin Singletary is going to be able to see 35% of the touches out of this backfield, and Matt Breida is getting some work, especially in the red zone. Zach Moss went from a running back getting every touch in the red zone in this offense, getting every target out of the backfield, to now being in a 3-way committee. Even if it's the best offense in the NFL, you still can't play Zach Moss. So the only running back you're starting in this game will be Jonathan Taylor. Now our next game for the Baltimore Ravens and the Chicago Bears. Very boring here as well. I hate to say, can't play him. But the issue is, with the Baltimore Ravens, it looks like Latavius Murray may be good to go in this game. And if Latavius Murray is good to go, which I'm assuming he may be, considering the fact that, he's practicing on Wednesday, I think we have to lower our expectations for every running back in this backfield. I think this goes back to being that three-man committee between Latavius Murray, between Devonta Freeman, and even Le'Veon Bell. Even if they phase out Le'Veon and it's just Freeman and Latavius Murray, at the end of the day, we know that this is going to be a low-scoring game overall between the Baltimore Ravens and the Chicago Bears. Y'all know one thing that we always say is Vegas knows more than you, Vegas knows more than me, Vegas knows more than all of us. They actually have this game right now with an over-under of 45.5 points, which is one of the lowest marks of this week. So I think we would be avoiding every running back that we can in Baltimore. You could start Freeman if Latavius Murray misses. It's going to be a tough matchup against Chicago, though. And then with the Chicago Bears, you're playing David Montgomery. Going back to what we were saying from Vegas, they currently have the Chicago Bears as 6-point dogs in one of the lowest scoring projected games of the week. So I think you have to expect that this entire offense for the Chicago Bears is going to be limited with Matt Nagy and Justin Fields. So the ceiling will be capped on David Montgomery. You're starting David Montgomery as a mid running back too, regardless, though, just because we're looking at it as a scenario that, come on, Montgomery's going to be seeing 80% of the touches in this backfield. Not worried about Khalil Herbert getting much of a role at all. Now, our next game, the Detroit Lions and the Cleveland Browns. You cannot start Dearness Johnson. Nick Chubb coming back in, even though Dearness Johnson, of course, was a must-start running back for you a week ago. Nick Chubb's going to come in. Nick Chubb will be seeing 20-plus touches guaranteed in this game. Great matchup against the Detroit Lions. Nick Chubb, one of the most talented running backs in the NFL, running behind one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, and most importantly, no Kareem Hunt in this offense. So you can be very excited about what we'll get with Nick Chubb this week against Detroit. I actually currently have Nick Chubb ranked as a top 5 running back this week, even in a PPR format. And then for the Detroit Lions, DeAndre Swift. Funny to see that this Lions offense tanks a week ago against a tough Pittsburgh Steelers defense. It's going to be a tough matchup as well. Right now, the Browns are favored by 10 points in this game. The Detroit Lions have one of the lowest implied team totals, according to Las Vegas, of the entire week. Nonetheless, you have to play DeAndre Swift. It's going to be interesting to see if Jamal Williams is active because DeAndre Swift wasn't able to really get going in the receiving game last week. Doesn't matter when he gets 33 carries, however, against the Pittsburgh Steelers with Swift, just because he's averaging about 6 receptions a game. Even in a game where we know the Detroit Lions are getting blown out, you're still going to have to start DeAndre Swift, honestly, as a low-end running back 1 this week in the tough matchup against the Browns. Now, our next game, the Houston Texans and the Tennessee Titans. I've had a lot of people out in the live streams going, okay, Mason, can we start Donta Foreman? Can we go through? Can we play Foreman? Trust me. Hook 'em horns. Love me some Donta Foreman. However, you can't go through and you can't start him this week. I know we have a lot of narratives going on. I know, obviously, this is the quote-unquote revenge game. Obviously, this is a great matchup as well against a very soft Houston Texans defense. And also, the Tennessee Titans are currently favored by 10 points in this game as well. So we would imagine that they are looking to run the ball. They don't have to just throw everything through the air through Marcus Johnson and A.J. Brown in this game. And Donta Foreman, he comes out. He leads this running back backfield in snaps, touches, and points a week ago. But it was a 3-man split. I definitely think we need to be picking up Donta Foreman as we had him on our waiver wire video because there are a couple outcomes that could play out here in Tennessee. A, maybe they just realized that Adrian Peterson doesn't have the juice anymore and they look to phase Adrian Peterson out of this offense. B, maybe Adrian Peterson or Jeremy McNichols gets hurt and this turns from a 3-man backfield into a 2-man backfield. And that's when we can begin to consider playing Donta Foreman. But for now, with how it's pretty much being split into thirds, you can't do it. You can't play a running back that tore his Achilles earlier in his NFL career in a running back backfield where he's going to be losing touches to 36-year-old Adrian Peterson and Jeremy freaking McNichols. Now, our next matchup, we'll have the Green Bay Packers, the Minnesota Vikings. Yeah, you play A.J. Dillon. A.J. Dillon's a low-end running back 1. I am surprised to see, and of course, there's something that I don't know here. I don't want to act like, oh my gosh, lock of the week, go bet this number. No, Vegas knows something I don't. But they have the Packers as 2.5-point favorites here. I get that they're playing in Minnesota. I get that this is a division game. If you asked me what the spread on this game would have been, I'd have maybe said 5 or 6. I figured that the Packers would be heavily favored here. I figured that they would be just running the ball down in the second half with A.J. Dillon. Maybe it's a little bit of a closer contest where they can't just lean on the run in the second half as I would have initially thought. Nonetheless, you're playing Dillon as it looks like he is going to be slated to get 20-plus touches in one of the most efficient offenses in the NFL. And the Minnesota Vikings haven't had a great run defense by any means this season. So fire the hell up, A.J. Dillon. And in the case of the Minnesota Vikings, we've had a lot of people coming out and they're worried about Dalvin Cook. I don't see what there is to worry about Cook with. I mean, if we're going to go through, you're going to look at what we've had this season, despite, I mean, let's go through and let's remove the weeks with Dalvin Cook that you've dealt with him possibly missing some time in a partial game due to an injury. Like, we're going to be ignoring what we had against the Cleveland Browns in week 4, because keep in mind, that was the game that he came back in and he split the workload with Alexander Mattison. Clearly not happening when Dalvin Cook's healthy. I mean, that was clearly a game that he was still a little bit limited. Outside of that, 20 carries, 22 carries, 29, 18, 17, 24. He's had 28 targets so far this season off of, I mean, I'm looking at 7 games here. So he's averaging 4 targets a game and over 20 carries a game. I don't care how good this Green Bay Packers defense is. You're going through, you're playing Dalvin Cook. He is a mid running back 1 at the very worst. So yeah, you have to fire up Dalvin Cook. Now, our next game, we have the New York Jets and the Miami Dolphins. Right now, Miami is actually favored by 3 points in this contest. Joe Flacco is going to be starting here. I think you do have to start Michael Carter, knowing that this will be a closer game. We get Tevin Coleman coming in this past week, and instead of Tevin Coleman coming out and taking any touches away from Carter, exactly what you wanted to see as a Michael Carter owner happened. Instead, Tevin Coleman just completely erases Ty Johnson in this offense and takes all those old Ty Johnson touches away. Michael Carter comes out, quietly has his career high in carries at 16 carries, also had 6 targets out of the backfield, and the toughest matchup possible against the Buffalo Bills. He drops 18 fantasy points. This is a running back that quietly has been, honestly, more impressive than I wanted to give him credit for. If you're looking at the workload, he has yet to have a game with just not hitting double-digit carries since week 3 against the Denver Broncos. I mean, he hasn't had a game. I mean, let's not even say that. Over the past month, pretty much, this is a running back that's averaged, I mean, he's had 31 targets through the past 4 weeks. That's an average of 7 targets a game. Michael Carter's had a fantastic workload. Let me run over to Patreon really quick and let me see where I actually have Michael Carter ranked in our rest of season rankings. It's a good matchup against the Miami Dolphins. But the more you look into the context that he has had this workload in and the overall production he's come with, I honestly think that maybe we're underrating Michael Carter here a little bit. I currently have Michael Carter ranked as the running back 18 in our rest of season rankings. We have him directly ahead of Elijah Mitchell, David Montgomery, Javonte Williams, Josh Jacobs, Kareem Hunt. Please, on Patreon, let me know if you think I need to be moving Michael Carter up. I think you make the argument to move him up to the running back 16 ahead of James Conner and Cordell Patterson, knowing that he should be able to continue to expand his role in his offense. I think that's a really intriguing spot, and I definitely ranked him way too low this week. I mean, I think that Michael Carter, you'd be excited about him possibly being a high-end running back 2 here in a great matchup against the Miami Dolphins. In the case with Myles Gaskin is 100% startable. This is one of the very few instances you can get excited about starting Myles Gaskin. He's going to be playing in a game where his team leads the majority of the time. You have no Malcolm Brown, so he is getting double-digit carries. Finally, he's not just getting used as that third down running back, as we kind of knew he was going to be coming into the year because they had Malcolm Brown there, but Malcolm Brown's hurt, and it's a good matchup against the Jets. Now, our next game, the New Orleans Saints and the Philadelphia Eagles. Very simple here. You do not start a single running back for Philadelphia. Looks like maybe, just maybe, you get Miles Sanders back this week. Probably not expecting that. Probably Miles Sanders is going to be coming back in another week. And nonetheless, for New Orleans, you start the starting running back, whether that's Kamara, whether that's Mark Ingram. A week ago, we said you start Mark Ingram everywhere, and he was a running back guaranteed to see 80+% of his backfield snaps and touches. I'm pretty sure he came away about 95% of those touches this past week. And yeah, it doesn't matter that Mark Ingram's a bad running back. Just when you're getting a workload like that, you just have to go through and play Mark Ingram everywhere you can. Now, our next matchup will be the Washington football team and the Carolina Panthers. Obviously, with Christian McCaffrey, this is a running back that we were saying buy low, buy low, buy low, buy low for I don't know how long, whenever he was going through with that injury, knowing that he was one of the very few running backs that had access to 28, 29 fantasy points per game. As we discussed in a video this week, I think you have to lower your expectation. Now that we have Cam Newton in here, I think that maybe Christian McCaffrey gets capped at 23, 24 fantasy points per game, which still has him in the conversation to being the running back 1 overall. He's just not in his completely own tier, 5 spots ahead of Jonathan Taylor, Najee Harris. No, he's actually a little bit down to earth with some of those other running backs, and I wouldn't hate it if someone wanted to rank Jonathan Taylor over Christian McCaffrey with the addition of Cam Newton, and with the fact that also with Christian McCaffrey, you have the worst fantasy football playoff schedule imaginable. But it doesn't really matter. You start him every single week. He's Christian McCaffrey's matchup proof. You're starting him. He's going to be a top 3 running back, regardless of the tough matchup he may have against the Washington football team. Wasting our breath, even talking poorly about Christian McCaffrey. Gibson, we said that you couldn't start him a week ago in a really tough matchup against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And he came out 20 plus carries. And now we know that, that workload that you had from Jarrett Patterson the week going into the bye, that was simply just there because you had the shin injury for Antonio Gibson. They removed him off the injury report for whatever reason, clearly still dealing with that shin injury a couple weeks ago. But nonetheless, I think now you're viewing him just as the first and second down running back for Washington. A mid running back too. I don't love the matchup against the Carolina Panthers. Washington currently is the underdog in this game by 3.5 points. So yeah, I'd say borderline play with Antonio Gibson. Maybe you throw him in your flex spot. Now, our next matchup, we have the San Francisco 49ers and the Jacksonville Jaguars. You play Elijah Mitchell, jam him in. Doesn't matter. Great matchup against the Jags here where they'll be leading the majority of the game. Jacksonville Jaguars playing James Robinson. Don't like the matchup against the 49ers, especially considering the fact that against the 49ers, we know that this will be an offense that can just get up big and kind of slow the pace of play down where the Jacksonville Jaguars really aren't even getting many plays off in the second half. Nonetheless, James Robinson, you know the workload you have. He's getting targets out of the backfield. He has the usage in the red zone. He has exactly what you're looking for. Now, our next matchup will be the Cincinnati Bengals, the Raiders. You start Joe Mixon. Don't need me to talk about that. The Las Vegas Raiders. Here's going to be a team that Josh Jacobs is now a marginal play. One thing that's surprising, we actually talked about this, I believe, in our running back rankings video. If you would have asked me, Mason, what's the spread on this game between the Bengals and the Raiders that are playing in Las Vegas? I would have assumed that the Cincinnati Bengals are favored by 3-4 points there. This goes back to me being stupid. For whatever reason, they're only favored by 1. This is essentially a pick'em game. So that does make it a little more appealing to play Jacobs, even though the Cincinnati Bengals are a tough matchup on paper. But I'd love to know what you think about that. It's just the workload that you've had for Kenyon Drake. You definitely have to be lowering your expectations with Josh Jacobs, even though he has been getting usage in the receiving game. With Josh Jacobs, just pulling up what we have seen over the past 3 or 4 weeks, 5 targets, 4 targets, 3 targets. Now, if you're looking at pretty much the entire season, he's had 25 targets so far, and he's played in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games. So he's getting over 3 targets a game, a career high with his level of involvement as a receiver. But the issue is they're just not having many trips to the red zone, and knowing that without Henry Ruggs, opposing teams are able to stack the box. So it's a much tougher spot with the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, Dallas, Kansas City, very simple. You play Ezekiel Elliott, you're going to be the highest scoring game of the week. And then in the case of the Kansas City Chiefs here, this is going to be a backfield where it's kind of hard to know what to expect because you're going to get Clyde Edwards-Helaire back this week. Now with CEH, this is a running back that from a season-long standpoint, once we get fully past this injury, I'm expecting Clyde Edwards-Helaire to most likely get about 30 to 35% of the touches taken away from him by Darrell Williams. However, for this week in particular, the first week back from his injury, maybe that's a little bit higher. Maybe it's closer to 40 to 50% of the touches are taken away from Darrell Williams. And if that's going to be the case, I think maybe we have to be a little bit hesitant starting Clyde Edwards-Helaire, just like what we said with Jerry Jeudy, his first week back from the high ankle sprain. Same thing that we said with Michael Gallup. When you have these players missing an extended period of time, I don't necessarily want to go through and just jam them in as locks in our lineup their first week back. So maybe we wait a week with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Now our next matchup, we got the Arizona Cardinals, the Seattle Seahawks. Okay, for Arizona, you're going to go through, you lock in James Conner, especially now that it looks like Kyler is practicing on Wednesday. So if Kyler's practicing on Wednesday, we have to be raising our expectations up for this Arizona Cardinals offense. And Conner will be a top 10 running back. If you're going to look at the Seattle Seahawks, hard to know what we'll have with Chris Carson. I don't think we can start any running back in Seattle, regardless of if you have it as Chris Carson, if you have it as Alex Collins, just because these are going to be running backs that are going up against a tough Arizona Cardinals defense. And at the same time, we don't even know what the workload will look like in Seattle. Our second to last game, you got Pittsburgh, Los Angeles. Nothing to say. Najee Harris, my running back, 1 this week. Great matchup against the Los Angeles Chargers. And also you're playing Austin Eckler, even the tough matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers, because Eckler, he's like the running back 3 so far this season on the points per game basis. Now you're going over to our last game here, the New York Giants and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Starting Leonard Fournette as that low-end running back 1. He has everything you'd ask for. He's getting 75% of the snaps every single week at the minimum for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. He gets the involvement as a receiver. He has the role in the red zone, and he's playing in a very productive offense overall. And now in the case of Saquon Barkley, I think you're going to play Barkley. You can't necessarily be that excited about it, just because this is a brutal matchup against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, even though I know Antonio Gibson came out and Antonio Gibson put up a show this past week. Nonetheless, I think you're playing Saquon Barkley most likely as a mid running back 2. And then from there, maybe if he disappoints, you can go buy him if you have not already, just because how bad this matchup is. I'd be surprised if Barkley comes out and all of a sudden he's a top 5 running back this week, even though, trust me, I would love it. Now, of course, thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. If you have not already, go down there, drop that like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, and of course, go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Go take advantage of some of those player props that they have over there. When you use promo code FLOCK and you make your first deposit, they'll match you dollar for dollar up to $100 in that deposit. So please take advantage of that. And yeah, that's all I got for you. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great day.